Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast. It is Jeremy Werner, and today we're going to talk about the college basketball offseason, the Final Four that was, and what Illinois is doing this offseason in the transfer portal. And the transfer portal at large, we bring in CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports college basketball writer Isaac Trotter, fresh off the trip to the Final Four. That you talk about drama, you talk about great teams, some up and down play there as we get in college basketball, Isaac. But man, what was that experience like covering the Final Four?
Yeah, three of the best games that I've seen this year, right? Like Auburn, Florida was awesome. Duke, Houston was awesome, and then just in the championship game to get a game like that was really really cool between Florida and Houston. It's funny, all three games at the under 4 media timeout in the second half, the team who was winning did not win the game. So it was just it's really cool drama and big time teams. And that's what you get when you get 4 number 1 seeds there, that caliber. I think we all kind of came in expecting something really good, and we got something even better.
What is the lasting story out of this? Is it Duke's collapse? Is it Houston's collapse? Or is it Florida finding a way to overcome a lot of deficits to get to a national championship victory?
Yeah, for me, it's Florida winning a national championship without a single top 100 recruit on the roster. Like, I can't believe something like that is a real thing, but it speaks to the portal, the free agency era, the ability to scout and develop, and what an unbelievable job of player development by that staff with, turning on a guy like Alex Condon, who recruiting analysts had really no idea about, into a legit high major starting caliber big man. Tommy Howe was like in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, turns into a legitimate, like maybe a first round pick. So like they have no top 100 recruits on this roster, but maybe 3 pros. That player development was a really, really cool story. But yeah, I think nationally wise, like Duke collapse is probably the biggest story. And that was, I was stunned after that game ended. Even then on Monday night when the game's about to start between Houston and Florida, I'm like, how is Duke not playing in this game? It's very bizarre. And, it was kind of a weird deal afterward. They kind of hid Cooper Flagg in like this hidden room for like 6 or 7 minutes to not let him get to media availability so he could answer more questions after going up on the podium for 3 minutes. So it was just a lot of little wrinkles behind there. It feels like Cooper Flagg had a phenomenal freshman year, and the lasting image of him is him just getting tucked away in a hidden room to run out the clock.
And what a year for him. You just think of if they would have closed that game out, got to a title game, and potentially won it, right? Like, you think of what his legacy in college would have been. I mean, he's still going to be one of the better NBA prospects we've seen in quite some time. He's going to be a very, very good NBA player, but the legacy of him would have gone up even further with a national championship victory, because that team was ridiculous. And it takes a special team full of freshmen just to even get to the Final Four, right? I mean, Cal did it a couple times. I know Coach K did it a couple times, but especially in this day and age, Isaac, for a team full of freshmen to get there is pretty special.
Yeah, your freshmen have to be superstars to get to that stage. And they did such a great job of complementing that group in the portal with veteran transfer. Sion James was a really good addition. And then, at the end, he's also a big part of that collapse where he just can't inbound the basketball. It's a very wild dichotomy where it felt like a Duke team that was playing as good at basketball as anybody in college basketball just like forgot how to play in the final minute. But all credit goes to Houston. Like that team I called them lovable cockroaches, which got people a little bit mad, but that's what they are. Like they just refuse to die, like over and over again. And it's just a tough, gritty group. And one of the more connected teams that you've been around, like that I've been around ever. Like that locker room after the last national title game was really, really brutal, because they were so close. They were really, really close. And it just, that's March though. Like that's what you see, the beauty and the pain of March is just, in one locker room, it's just like utter devastation. And then, right around the corner, it's just another locker room that's just like chanting many men and like just cigars everywhere and everyone's having a great time.
That might be the indelible image for me, is just Kelvin Sampson's face after not getting a shot off at the end, which is a terrible way to lose. Just a terrible way to lose an athletic event. But like they were on one end of that spectrum with an unbelievable comeback against Duke, and then on the other end with that collapse. So like that to me is it's the beauty and the ugliness of March right there.
It totally is. And it's weird. It's like Houston's superpower all year long. It's offensive rebounding. And they basically handicapped themselves by not being able to get a shot in the final 4 possessions of that game. It's a wild way for that to end. And now, like, we head into like an off-season mode where everybody flips an off-season mode, and it's like, all right, how do we get there? And it's like, well, good luck and best wishes, because this transfer portal cycle is nuts.
Yeah, let's dive into it. But is there any major takeaways from this NCAA tournament, Isaac, about how to roster build? What is the right way to roster build in this transfer portal age where mostly everybody's turning over at least half their roster?
Yeah, there is no one perfect way to build a champion. I think we've pretty much debunked that. But I think that there are little lessons that we can learn. The double big lineup is something that I just keep noticing. Florida really relied on it heavily and on their way there. Auburn, that was a big part of their game plan. Houston almost always had a double big lineup on the floor. Duke, their four-man Cooper Flag, who can do a little bit of everything, but they had a lot of skilled size on the floor. And I think that's like the era where college basketball, the best teams start to have that. And I think, I talked to one offensive coordinator about this. He's like, it's just because you can hide non-shooting bigs a little bit easier. Like they can screen, they know how to rebound. They're still able to impact the game a lot of different ways, even if they're a non-shooter. And just having that size on the floor is so important for rim protection. All four of those teams that made the Final Four were some of the best rim protection teams in college basketball. I just don't think that's a coincidence. If you could protect the rim at a really high level, if you can have a lot of skilled size, that gives you a leg up compared to some of the past. Like obviously you need guards, and Walter Clayton Jr. on your team is unbelievable, but that differentiator is that skilled size and that elite rim protection. Because it felt like in that game, you're up close watching, it's like good luck scoring at the rim. There were just high level athletes just flying around, and nothing. Elijah Martin had one of the best dunks I've ever seen in person, just like a complete tomahawk jam. But two dudes were going up to go get that one too. Like it was high level athletes putting on a big time show.
All right, we will dive into that double big. We'll talk about athleticism when it applies to Illinois here in a moment. But let's look back on Illinois' season. How would you kind of grade this? How would you kind of review Illinois basketball season? 22 wins. You turn over basically the entire roster and still get to the NCAA tournament as a 6 seed, win a game, but ultimately fall short of the second weekend again.
B-. Yeah, just kind of where I feel like you fall. Maybe you feel a little bit like a missed opportunity when NBA talent type of come through your locker room, and you feel like that's kind of what you need to make a really an interesting run toward the top, and you need an NBA guard to win a national championship. I think that's been a formula that a lot of teams have looked at, and Florida has that, right, with Walter Clayton Jr., and Illinois had what they thought were NBA talent, and just a missed opportunity. I think you think back to some of those games in the middle of the regular season, it's like, man, maybe we shouldn't have lost at home to USC, or maybe if we found a way to win that road game at Northwestern where we're up by 10 in the second half, and maybe we don't end up on the 6th line. And like, I just think about those things, like to maybe make your seed just a little bit better, that could have certainly come into play. But yeah, a missed opportunity overall this year. You had a good year. I think that Brad Underwood put the expectation that this team could have a great season, and I think they showed little flashes of that at the beginning. And ultimately you fall short, and that's it. That's just it. That's college basketball, though. You give yourself another bite at the apple, and sometimes you just fall short because 363 teams do every year.
Yeah. How would you describe right now the transfer market right now in college basketball in this offseason so far?
I think it's really unprecedented. I get a little bit closer up close view this cycle compared to other ones, but the type of money that's going around for some of these teams, just something we haven't seen. And a part of it is the house settlement and the double dipping ability that you wrote a really good stuff about this with the football aspect of it. So this is not anything new, but I think a lot of people went into this cycle being like, all right, most of the high major teams are going to have maybe between $4, $5, maybe $6 million to roster build. There's like 12 or 13 teams that are north of 10 million. And like that tax for the portal has just really reshaped like what guys are asking for. And it's like a great player in the league needs $2.5 to $3 million to stay. A good high major player who like maybe could be an all conference guy is like wanting $1.5 to $2 million to stay. And like compared to the last cycle where you could get a really good high major player for $350,000, like it's just like the market has just ballooned. Yeah. And I don't know if that's like sustainable long term. But like it is what it is right now, and you're seeing a lot of really good programs. Like I'm not going to name names right now, but like there's really good programs that have won a lot of games at high major ranks that are going, we can't afford anybody right now. Like I was talking to one coach down in San Antonio. He's like, I offered someone $500,000, and he looks like me like I'm crazy. Like that's the world of the portal right now, and it's really unprecedented.
I am fascinated next offseason right? This is the greatest time to be a college athlete because you have all of this NIL money that they feel like they have to use now because they don't know if they're going to be able to use it in a couple of weeks or a month, right? Because if this house settlement gets cleared, then obviously you have pay for play. Like this NIL has to be fair market value. You have revenue sharing, and there's a big pot of that with usually what, $3.5–4 million per school, more if you're a Big East program because you don't have to worry about football. Maybe some. I still think there's going to be some programs in the Big Ten that go here $5 or $6 million for college basketball because it matters a lot to us. But next offseason, when NIL is supposed to be fair market value, we'll see if the black market comes back here. What's it going to be like when some of these guys have to take a pay cut? Isaac's like, all of this stuff, like, it's going to be fascinating to watch how this goes because this feels like the ballooning market. Does it pop at some point, or is there another way that these players find a way to get paid under the table?
Yeah, no, I've thought the same thing. It's like, how and when does cheating come back, and does that start as soon as next year? But allegedly, there's going to be some pretty serious fines if you find a way to go under the table to cheat like that. Like you could talk about being suspended the entire year, like all of those different things. So I think you kind of need to have those guardrails in place to try to stop that. But you're right, like we're going to end up in a cycle where a really good player this year gets $2 million, then he's going to go back to the negotiating table next year, and it's like, well, we can get you $450,000. It's like, what mentally you're getting the same percentage of the cap like that you might have been able to get, the year before, but like, it just feels different, right? Like it's a bizarre world. And I feel like guys right now, like you just have to take advantage of it. And I think that's why you're seeing so many really good players that hit the portal. Like I'm part of the transfer portal scouting team at 24/7. So we're grading guys. And we had an internal discussion about it yesterday. Like we have 252 guys already that are 4-star prospects in the portal, where we kind of expect them to be like a high major, like rotation player at minimum. And you go through the list, you're like, I don't disagree with anybody's rating. Like that's a really high number compared to what we've had in the past, because there's a lot of really good players that are trying to cash in on it.
Yeah. Man, there's a couple ways I want to take this. I want to talk to you about like how you guys kind of go about the process, because I think people have a lot of interest in that. But like, I wonder, number one, the power conferences, their leagues have to be all in on actually enforcing this. Like the commissioners have to be all in on, we can't, for the good of this sport and the future of college athletics, we have to enforce these things and make sure there's not a black market. Two, maybe next year you just have more guys just going to the NBA and going professional, right? If it's not $2-3 million to come back, a lot more guys would just choose to jump to the NBA. So maybe that happens instead of entering the portal.
I think that's probably fair. I think the other thing is just like understanding that still $600,000 is great money for a college kid. Like that's really awesome money. So maybe that like comes into play a little bit as well. But I do think that like you're going to have, collective bargaining is right around the corner. I really genuinely think that that's happening. It's only a matter of time. But I also think that like there is going to be Moneyball techniques that certain teams use that will give teams an edge. I don't think it's a coincidence that like some of the highest paid players in last year's transfer portal cycle didn't make the tournament. Like Great Osprey didn't make the tournament. Coleman Hawkins didn't make the tournament. Like it is about like navigating your budget in a great way. Now Duke has a lot of money and they made the Final Four. And I'm not saying that money doesn't matter. I'm just saying like how you build your roster.
Right. Omar Ballo.
Oh. Correct. Like it's really more about like how you allocate your funds, not necessarily just like paying those top guys. And that's like this year I'm fascinated to see like Donovan Dent is a great example. He got a huge bag from UCLA, rumored of over $3 million to play there. Like I think paying $3 million to a player in this cycle is fine because of the extra money in it, and so that could potentially put yourself in position to do it. And BYU right now is doing the same type of thing. Like they have enormous money. It's like, does fit even matter anymore? Because like I don't know if it does if the money's this different. Like, yeah, maybe the fit for Rob Wright at Baylor is a really good deal for $1 million. But if you could go to BYU where the fit's a little bit worse, but hey, you get $3 million, like I think that makes sense. It feels more like old school recruiting is almost dead, because it's like we can Zoom with a kid, we can figure out the money, and boom, it's done. It's like it doesn't necessarily matter the relationships, the fit, the NBA. It's just like if the money's a big difference, that's where they're going to go.
Especially for these guys where this is their best opportunity to make that kind of money playing basketball, right? Like these kind of in between borderline NBA guys makes a ton of sense to do that. Let's talk a little bit about What is the process of 24/7 Sports and CBS and evaluating transfers, ranking them? Like, what do you guys go through? Because I know people always have questions about that, Isaac.
Yeah, so like right now, like we've split it up where we each have to watch a bunch of different guys, and it's just like we have a huge rolling document that we're going through. Yesterday, we released the rankings, but the 2 days before that, we were on the meeting for like 2.5 hours, basically breaking down we grade every player between like a 98 to 100 is kind of like what we expect to be like an all conference type of player, potentially like a guy who could, if the thing, breaks the right way, could potentially win player of the year in their respective leagues. And then it's like, after that, it's like 94 to 97 is guys that we think could potentially be all conference guys, like, or like a really good starter on a good team. And after that, it's like 90 to 93 where we think, maybe a great numbers guy on like a bad team, but a good piece on a great team, stuff like that. So like, that's kind of like the different numbers that you're kind of assigning for those 4-star transfers. And we try to watch as much of them as we can, or we're really not trying to rank a guy as soon as, like, if we haven't watched them, we don't try to assign them a ranking. And then we kind of, it's all the 93s. Like we have them on a list. It's like, okay, which 93 do you like better? All the 94s, which 94 do you like better? Like we're kind of massaging it down, and it's hard because it feels like in the portal, talent is important, but like fit matters so much more than anything in the portal. So it's like, it's hard to do that, but beforehand, before we know where they're going, because it feels like, the talent for one kid could get negated because the fit for another one who's in the similar tier, in that 94 tier, could potentially boost them up to potentially being an all conference type of player. So it's hard, you're trying to factor in how many years of eligibility guys have left. Could they be a multi-year transfer, could stick around for a couple of years and potentially turn into, maybe a 94 turns into a 97, 98 in that second year, like I love to talk about. So that's like the nuances of it right now, but it's a lot of film, and it's a lot of meetings, and it's a lot of debates. And I'm already holding it over Travis Branham and Eric Bossie's head about a guy that I really like that they might not have. And I'm sure the same is happening vice versa.
I like that collaboration, though, and the healthy debate. That's a good thing that we're doing that. So you can check out that you guys just released your top 100. I know you guys continue to upgrade those and update those. Hey, guys, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't stink. That's got to be a priority for you every day. No one in the office, at the bar, or at home is going to want to be around you if you smell like BO. And let me give you a product that will take care of that. Mando. They sent me a starter pack of products, and I can tell you that their product will help you smell good and get the people around you, including your significant other, to want to be around you more. Their whole body deodorant is safe to use anywhere in your body. Pits, sack, thigh folds, belly buttons, butt cracks, and feet. Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated, and Mando is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. You can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, Cloverwoods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. It's all clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. Get this, 12 hours after a shower, the average man's odor level was a 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average odor level is a 0 out of 10. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack in our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Just use code Illini at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence level from head to toe with Mando. All right, let's talk about Illinois. Tomislav, Ivisic, and Kylan Boswell return. That's about as big a news as they could have outside of Will Riley, right? Deciding to return. How good can that duo be? As you know, the second season, as you've talked about, second seasons for a guy like Ivisic from Europe or a transfer like Kylan Boswell can be significant. So how good can that duo be and stack up in the Big Ten?
Yeah, getting those two back, really gives you a little bit of separation in the Big Ten where, Purdue is like the only other team that's really crushed it in retention so far. They get Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn back. Outside of that, a lot of teams haven't been able to get their superstars like super locked in. Like John Blackwell, you see little instances like Blackwell returns, or, a piece like, Oregon gets Jackson Shelstead back, and we'll see on Nate Biddle. Illinois getting their big man and their center back gives them a little bit of a heads up, or a legs up compared to some of the other of their Big Ten rivals. And, I think that the Kylan Boswell year 2 transfer breakout is definitely something that I'm going to be talking about all offseason. I thought that he played really well this year and just didn't make shots at times down the stretch. Like, I thought that his rim pressure has improved. The ability to get the free throw line has skyrocketed. And if you can pair that with the threes, where he starts to find himself again being able to shoot at the range that he expects himself to shoot, 35, 36, 37% on high volume, you could potentially talk about him as one of the better guards in the Big Ten. And then getting Ivisic back, they're paired together, right? Ivisic stretches the floor, gives Boswell opportunity to continue to drive to the rim and use his strength and get to the basket. You know, the lobs over the top, I think their connectivity on that should continue to get better. Yeah, it's just, when you can get two legit studs back like that, it just makes roster building a lot easier, because you know kind of like what we have to build around. And very few other Big Ten teams got that luxury this offseason. And that's where I think Illinois has to take advantage of it in the next couple of weeks.
Yes. Like, I understand like so much anxiety about who's next, who takes us to that next level. But that foundation of those two together is certainly stronger than a lot of other teams. Yeah, Ty Rodgers, Jake Davis. We'll see about Ben Hummerkaus here. That's at least a solid foundation from last year. But you add to it. And the front court was where they have started. And you had Big Z, Zvonimir, Ivisic to this as well. 7'2", really great rim protector, can really stretch the floor. What do you make of that addition, along with Tommy and the twins potentially playing together and rotating with each other?
Yeah, so we had another big conversation about Big Z in our scouting and rankings meeting yesterday. It's just like, this kid is so talented, and like offensively, just the tools that he has are very different compared to a lot of other big men. But he also has a lot of, he has a lot of cleaning his game up to do as well. And I think Illinois is this is a big bet on player development. And that's one thing at the Final Four that you saw, just like the player development there for those programs were great. If Illinois wants to get on that tier, I think player development with Big Z could certainly help out with that, because the offensive capabilities that he has, it's a little like Dane Danger, where he'll do some weird things because he's just more talented than a lot of other guys. Like, he will take a 14-foot hook shot and it just goes in. And it's a very odd dichotomy watching him play, because he takes shots you maybe don't love, but he makes enough of them. And, there was only 4 7-footers last year that made more than 43s at the or in college basketball. 2 of them will play for Illinois next year. Like, that's a pretty insane type of duo that they have. In my head, I'm looking at it going, can this front court make 123s next season? That's an unprecedented number, but it's not really when you factor in like how fast they want to play, the offense that they have, and the personnel. So both of these two guys have a chance to potentially make 50-ish threes next year and potentially be some of the better 3-point shooters on this roster. But he has got to clean his body up. That's one thing I keep when I watch him. He doesn't bend well, and that's like one thing. He's not very elastic. Like, he moves a little bit clunky at times, and I think that's something that Adam Fletcher is going to have to do a lot of work with him in order to get it up to tier. But I do think that there's underrated parts of his game that, we talk a lot about the threes. He's a better post-up threat than Tomislav. He is a guy that, if you go put a small on him, he can really, he spins off of them really well and can finish with creative finishes around the paint. He's got those hook shots in the middle of the floor. He's more comfortable as like a natural scorer, I think, than Tomislav is in that mid-post, low-post area. And I think that this is a bet on him being one of your best players next year. And defensively, there's questions about like how he moves. But again, then you watch him, it's like he does take good angles at times, and his wingspan's enormous. Like, I don't know what the exact number on that is, but like, he comes out of nowhere for some of these blocks because he just takes the right angle and is able to get that. So we have him as a top 35 guy in the portal. We gave him a 95. Like, it's hard.
Because Tommy's on the team, it feels like we don't talk about how talented Big Z is. And like, he was the bigger NBA prospect coming into this year. So I get it. Like, everyone kind of assumed once he went to the portal, Illinois was going to get him. And he's kind of a rotation player for Illinois. I'll throw it to you whether you think how much they can play together. But this is a big time addition. He's a top 35 transfer, number 6 center for you guys.
Yeah, we think he can be like a legit like double-digit guy next year. And I think the other underrated part of this is getting him keeps Tommy. So it's like it's like the free agency type of thing where it's like, I think I think about like that Paul George, Kawhi Leonard thing. It's like, if we go get one, we'll get the other. That's kind of how this one was. If you could go get Big Z, it means you're keeping Tommy. So it's like, it's definitely paired together. It definitely is paired together. So yeah, we really like Big Z. The upside is certainly there. He can drive you nuts at times if you watch him closely. And, I would maybe toss out some of the numbers from the late games from Arkansas. He had a really bad wrist injury that he was playing through. So I think that kind of explained why he wasn't shooting it very well down the stretch. But yeah, we think he can be one of their best players, and Illinois does too, clearly, with the roster construction.
This time last year, nobody knew who Kasper Siakashonis was, basically, and Illinois got him. And listen, I know the end of the season didn't go well, but he was a very good addition for Illinois. David Mirkovic, didn't know him a couple weeks ago. Gotten to watch his game a little bit and very intrigued. 6'9", 250 out of Montenegro. Going to play the Nike Hoop Summit on Saturday night, 9 o'clock Central Time, I believe. So we get a look at him. As you've kind of dove into his film just a little bit here, what do you think of this edition? Another front court edition here.
Yeah, definitely. It's the first name I thought of is like, is this like a baby Tyler Bilodeau from UCLA? Like a 6'9", can stretch the floor a little bit. Illinois fans saw that one up close and personal. He could drill some threes, but the one play that I remember when I'm watching his film is Mirkovic has a wide open layup and takes a layup instead of dunking it, and I was like, oh, that's a Bilodeau move. I saw that when I watched UCLA this year too. And so maybe not the greatest athlete, but a good enough athlete. I think it's a fascinating piece. I think it kind of goes back to their they're making a priority that if you're going to play in this front court, you better be able to shoot that thing. And it feels like he is the third, piece of this front court who can certainly shoot it. And the size, the rebounding, the ability to mismatch hunt a little bit, I think with his post-up game is certainly interesting, as well as they probably will invert the floor a lot with a center dragging the best shot blocker away from the rim. You have to have guys that can take advantage of those, and I think Mirkovic can do that. And if he can follow that Bilodeau path, that's a really nice player to have for multiple years. Bilodeau turns into a really nice player for UCLA and was a good one last year at Oregon State. So that's the comp that I noticed with him right away. We'll see how his body develops. We'll see how much he can get to play right away. But, I look at him as a guy that they're probably going to have to play at least, 12 to 14 minutes a game, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, it could be 20, depending on what they want to do here, what they do the rest of the offseason. But he's a really intriguing piece. But I look at this front court, Isaac, they're going all in on size and skill, not so much athleticism, right? And offensively, this could be really interesting and fun to watch if these guys hit shots and surrounded by shooters. Obviously, if I'm a guard, man, I'm thinking about the spacing that you can get with all these bigs. But defensively, there's certainly concerns here.
It is. And I think this is basically you're kind of hamstringing yourself, as we're probably going to play a pretty passive defense again next year. I think you just have to. When we went through Big Z's tape, when he has to close out long on guys, that's when he got in the most problems. He was jumping for shot fakes and basically just taking himself completely out of plays. And we saw that a lot when we were kind of going through some of his defensive tape. I think his best case scenario is him looming near the basket. And that's what Illinois wants to have him do as much as possible. I would expect a lot of deeper drop coverage. I think that just makes a lot more sense. I think Illinois is going to be a good rim protecting team because they have 2 7'2" guys on the floor. But I do think you're kind of opening yourself up to some athletic problems, right? Who is guarding the big fours on this group? And, I think this team has shown that the staff has shown that they'll be creative with it. And I think it's only a matter of time until, Tommy probably guards the center. And I would not be surprised if Ty Rodgers is on the floor, if he's the guy that switches onto those athletic fours, and Zvonimir Ivisic is the one that we're putting on, a shooter or a guard that we don't necessarily trust to make a lot of shots. He feels like the Dort candidate to me. Yeah. He's the guy, he's the Ben Humrickhouse who is going to take the Dort candidate this year. And we'll see how that goes. But yeah, they've definitely any thoughts of hey, let's play a really aggressive defense, I think have certainly gone out the door after some of these roster decisions.
What do you make of Ty Rodgers returning and what his fit is on this team?
Fascinated by it. Yeah. I was kind of doing the numbers of it. It's every guy who redshirted before the beginning of the season, who we kind of expected to play, almost like the hit rate to the portal was just nuts.
Did you do that? I was thinking of doing that. I brought that up with somebody. I'm like, I should dive into this, but no, Trotter's already done it. So
yeah.
Fair.
So I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but like it's insane. Like it was like an 85 to 90% rate of guys that redshirted before the season hitting the portal. So like Ty coming back is pretty unprecedented. And I think part of it is just like the Trey White decision has certainly impacted that. Like the Merez decision certainly impacted that as well. But it's fascinating because this team needs rim pressure. And Kylan Boswell, I think, is probably your best rim pressure guy, but Ty might be your second best on this roster at points. And, I think there was times this year where Illinois did not have someone they trusted to drop step and score in the paint. And Ty Rodgers can certainly do that as well if he can get the right matchup. So we'll see how his body progresses. I do not expect him to play point guard. I'm sorry, Andy Katz. So we'll see how that continues to go. But I do think he has a chance to be a really impactful piece for this group, especially defensively, if he can guard some of those big wings or those fours that maybe you don't feel great about Zvonimir or Ivisic potentially guarding.
Illinois clearly needs backcourt help, and one of these players has to be a high-level player. If they have aspirations of winning the Big Ten, of going very far in the NCAA tournament. So what do they need, Isaac, and how much will it take to land a player of that caliber?
Yeah, it's not going to be cheap. I think at this point, I'm looking for a wing that could really get after it in transition. Maybe more of like a quick twitch wing that can shoot it from you almost need him to be your second best guard at this point, your second best player at this point. And it's not going to be cheap. Some names that I would put out there: Cedric Coward from Washington State, the transfer. I love his game. He is somebody. Yeah, he's somebody that I heard that the staff had sniffed around last year when he was transferring from Eastern Washington. He goes to Washington State. He has a shoulder injury, misses most of the year. He's back in the portal right now. I don't think he's going to go to the NBA. He might be a little expensive. We haven't really heard a lot. It's been really quiet around his recruitment so far. But if they recruited him last time, I think that they would at least inquire again this time. And he's that type of fit of 6'5", 6'6", can really guard. Secondary rim protection is there. Really athletic, can score in transition, good shooter. And he's a great post-up threat. That's what they do at Washington State, and under David Riley did the same thing at Eastern Washington. They really like to invert the floor and find mismatches and go to work. And if Illinois wants to do a lot of those same things as well with the Ivisic boys stretching the floor, I think Coward would be a really good fit. So that's kind of what you're looking for in this class. It's that no doubt splash wing. The problem is how much money does Illinois have? They probably tied up a lot of that into Kylan Boswell, tied up a lot about it into the Ivisic boys. Mirkovic, I don't know the numbers on him, but I would assume he costed a little bit to bring him over. It's how much do we have? Can we afford it in a cycle that feels like, a good player is going for millions of dollars in this cycle?
Yeah, but I wonder how much more they got to raise. Right now, I'm wondering if they're going out there and be like, hey, we need a little bit more money than we thought, just because the prices are insane. But if you want to be a contender, Illinois needs to add a dynamic piece. And you brought up Coward. I don't know if there's an elite skill. If I'm an NBA team, I'm yep, I got to have this guy. But when I watched him last night, because I know you had mentioned him to me, all of these things Illinois needs. He can be an impact defender. He can block shots. He's got some length to him, 6'6", 205, has some strength to him. He's an older player. He's been a high-level scorer, but he can do it in so many different ways. Booty ball is one of his strongest things. The post-ups, like you said, are some of the strongest things he does. And with all these stretch bigs, the space he would have to do that, plus he's a good passer out of that. He can take you off the bounce if you need to get to the rim. He can finish at the rim, and he can be a catch and shoot guy. He's good at all of those things. And I'm that's exactly what Illinois needs, is a guy who can make an impact on both sides of the ball, but really take advantage of the spacing. They need somebody who can get to the rim and make some open shots, of course, but there's going to be so much spacing. You need a guard who can take advantage of that with some size, some athleticism, and just three-level scoring.
I totally agree. And, I think that's the frustrating thing, I think, right now, if you're looking at the portal. It's it almost feels like a great fit doesn't matter as much if the money isn't really close. Yeah. So we can say oh, all of these things. And I love to break it down of which player fits. And it's true. It would be a great fit. But the money has to be remotely close. And for some of these teams, I'm telling you, the tax that some of the 12 teams that have $10 million right now are making all of the others try to get close to that number, it makes it tough. But you're right. That type of archetype is exactly what they need. And I think an underrated part that we've talked a lot about of like defensively is, rim protection is not just about your big guys. It's really about your perimeter defense and how you can like continue like to limit straight line drives and stay out of rotation. Illinois still needs like that another awesome defender to keep the Ivisic boys from having to constantly, have to help and recover and constantly get into straight line drives. And, like that a really dynamic perimeter defender, I think, would really go a long way to covering up some of the Ivisic boys' flaws as like on the perimeter. And I think that's got to be a big priority for the rest of the staff as well, including, as we've talked about, the shot making and the fit and all of those different things.
But you're right. Like if you're going to be all in on drop coverage again, which you are with the personnel you've had in the front court, like you got to get more dynamic, on the wing, stronger, longer, more athletic. And that's why there's a lot at stake, Isaac, in these next couple months of how good Illinois will be. I think they'll be good. Like they have a really good foundation here. So for all the anxiety, I think they have a good foundation, but to be the Big Ten contender, to be a team that gets to the second weekend and can really threaten for a Final Four, you got to add two really good pieces here.
You do, and I think that this staff has definitely earned the benefit of the doubt that they're good at scouting the mid-major ranks of the portal, right? Like we've seen that before with a Marcus Damask. Like I wonder if something like that will be necessary in this cycle when the numbers are crazy. Can you moneyball your way to finding a difference maker? And that goes into how prepared were you before the transfer portal opened? How good are you at evaluating, and can you find that right piece? Because I think just the numbers that you hear going like the Malik Moore kid from Montana. The money clearly has not lined up. That's why that has not happened. Like he's a good player from Montana who is asking for like 7 figures. Like that's a legit thing.
The mid-major thing. Like I don't even know if you can moneyball those guys anymore with what they're getting.
You can't. And maybe, I think that's where you look at like, okay, who was injured last year? That was a way that certain teams have moneyballed that as well. Who is maybe not on the radar as well. Who's going, if you're going on Bart Torvik and looking at the top transfers, who's not popping analytically for some of these other guys that we can maybe find. That's where you're
Jay. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Find your John Tonje. Like that's the type of stuff that I think that some of the elite staffs are going to have to try to do because like I said, like there's really good college basketball staffs out there that have won a lot of basketball games that do not have the money that other teams have right now.
Yeah. Where's this all go? Yeah, I'm just fascinated where this all goes. We don't have the answer, right? It's just something's got to change.
I think maybe making all of the
I'm a donor. Like people keep coming back to me, ask for more and more and more. At some point, that doesn't feel sustainable.
No. That's where I do think it has to be like this has to be like revenue sharing from the TV contracts. Let's make all of these contracts as much as we can, like public, so to speak. Like let's have a salary cap. Let's like all of these different things because the
collective bargain, right? Like that's the
answer to this. How easily can we get there? I don't know. I feel like it's hard to trust some of the higher ups that be to make this work.
All right, we got 4 new coaches in the Big Ten. Which fit do you like the most here so far?
It's weird. I feel like all of them did a great job of hiring the right guy. Like they feel like good fits individually. I think Nico Medved to Minnesota has a chance to be a really nice addition there. 1, he knows the area. 2, it's really important to him. He's been a manager. He's been on that thing. Like, I think that stuff that matters. And 3, he's just a heck of a ball coach. Like he is an unbelievable offensive mind. Joey Wagner gives me a hard time, like about like sending Nico Medved like love in our group chat together. So he's really good at what he does. I think Minnesota is a sneaky team that I would expect to have a little bit more money than you might expect compared to the past. When with change comes the ability for new money to come in, and I think that Medved is going to be able to rally the cause there a little bit. And if he can just get in the ballpark financially wise, I think he's got a chance to build a really interesting team because that Minnesota shouldn't be as bad as they have been at times during the last decade of Big Ten basketball. And so they have a chance to be really, really good there because I think they nailed the coach. They're going to give him extra resources, and his offense is really, really good. He already made one really good splash too. Bobby Durkin from Davidson is like a perfect fit for what they're going to do. 6'7" wing who can really shoot it. He's going to have a really big year there.
Yeah, and obviously it helps when you just coached him, but getting Sturts to Iowa, Ben McCollum is a nice little start. Tucker DeVries to Indiana. Nice to have those guys right there.
It makes life so much easier, doesn't it? Right? Like just being able to get those first building blocks, and you kind of build your team out from there. And yeah, like DeVries getting Tucker to one, getting Tucker to stay out last year and not come back and keep that injury year is certainly looming large. But yeah, Bennett Sturtz. If you haven't watched him at Drake, wow, what a player. We have him number 2, I believe, in our transfer portal rankings, 6'4" lead guard. He's just tremendous. And to be honest, internally, we were having legit discussions if we should have him number 1. So he's going to be a big time point guard, and giving Braden Smith a real run for his money as the best point guard in the Big Ten next year.
Buzz Williams has a lot of work to do, has a whole roster to replace. What do you think of that fit? I mean, he's kind of Lon Krugering this career every 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, can I just put Maryland down to be like 21-12 and 10-10 in the Big Ten next year? That feels like exactly what they're going to be. Now, a familiar face coming back, Pharrell Payne, former Minnesota big man. He's already on the roster. Solomon Washington is a transfer in from Texas A&M who is extremely, extremely good defensively. So scoring at the rim is going to be really hard against Maryland. They're going to be like brutes in there, 6'7" and like 250 or 240 probably for Solomon Washington. And then Pharrell Payne, like he's baby Kofi, like it just explodes off the floor. So that team is going to be really, really good defensively. We'll see if they can score. They got Miles Rice as well, maybe a little bit of a bounce back candidate there. So I think they're just going to be solid. Buzz Williams is always just solid. I don't know if there's a super high ceiling, but there's a pretty high floor there.
Sounds like a team Illinois could struggle with again at Maryland. What do you know? Who in the Big Ten? Last one I got. Who in the Big Ten's off to a good start in the portal for you?
Well, I think retention is something I'm really going to be continued to focus on. So Purdue, getting Braden back, getting Trey Kaufman-Renn back, just start right there. Boom, done. Like offseason, A+, because you got those two guys back when they could have easily if they hit the portal, we're talking $3.5, $4 million that both of those guys could have easily garnered. So getting them back is huge. I think Oregon has done a really nice job getting Jackson Shellstad back. If they get Nate Biddle back, they're kind of like in the Illinois range with getting Kylan and Tommy back. If Oregon gets Jackson Shellstad and Nate Biddle back, I think they'd feel great about it. Biddle is going through the NBA draft process right now. Says that if he comes back to college basketball, it will be to Oregon. In the portal wise, for hating on the portal, Tom Izzo sure knows how to scout it. He did a really good job with his scouting there, getting Caleb Glenn, the FAU transfer. I really like him. 6'7", 210 pounds. We have him as like a top 70 guy, I believe, for us. It's hard. Top 70 is a compliment because there's so many really good players in this, but he could really shoot the three. He's big and physical. He's so good in transition. That's what Michigan State wants to do. I think he's going to have a really nice job there. And then obviously Michigan. Michigan has serious money that they're throwing around. Yaxel Lindeborg, number 1 transfer in the country. Now, we have heard some stuff that he might be able to stay in the NBA. If he does stay in the NBA and there's a first-round pick, that could be a blow. But they're really well positioned for Ade Mara as well. So like Merez Johnson, Ade Mara, Yaxel Lindeborg is not crazy to potentially have in that front court. Dusty May likes his bigs, and he is going to have one of the best big men front courts in the Big Ten next year.
How much better do you think Merez gets in his second year?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because he's such a monster, and I loved him. I was saying some outlandish stuff to you guys behind the scenes of like just what he could potentially be, and I think he's a double machine. I think the defense is going to only get better. I think the work ethic is something that you trust with a guy like that. But again, fit matters, and so if they get a Ade Mara, if they get Yaxel Lindeborg back, could he be the third big in that rotation? Very well, could be. It's a hard thing to kind of navigate right there. So I trust Dusty May is going to do a great job of orchestrating and building an offense to get him best position to succeed. But it's hard to really know exactly what that role could be until we know what Yaxel's status is.
I think Will Riley's going to go to the NBA draft, and I would imagine he sticks there if. Jonathan Givony, I respect a lot based on his evaluation of where he thinks he's going to go. But if Will is told he's like pick 25 through 40, how much money does it take to bring him back to Illinois? Because boy, that make for a happy offseason right there.
$3 million.
Yeah, be a Big Ten Player of the Year candidate, right? If it weren't for Braden.
Yeah, I mean that's the type of money that I think a guy like him would command. And now, does he want to hit the portal? That would kind of open up all of these other options. But yeah, that's the type of piece. And you envision what his fit would be on this roster. It's just okay, you'd have a chance. I think I would have Illinois right there next to Purdue as my Big Ten favorite, and Michigan if you get a Will Riley back, because that's just the type of pro that you certainly need. And yeah, I mean, everybody loves to be like, oh, if they come back to school, they're automatically going to improve their stock so much. And that's not necessarily true for everybody. We have a lot of examples of that. But I think for Will, it would certainly improve his stock in a major way and probably position him to be a top 10 pick in 2026.
Isaac Trotter, you're the goods, man. Great stuff throughout the NCAA Tournament Final Four and the transfer portal. I know it doesn't slow down for you, so we always appreciate you giving us about 45 minutes of your time this morning. So appreciate it, man.
Of course, anytime. Thanks for having me.